The encounter in the park. Alexander Blackwood, a self-made tech millionaire, at just 35, strolled through Central Park one crisp autumn afternoon. His perfectly tailored designer suit and polished leather shoes stood out among the casual attire of joggers, families, and tourists. Alexander, or Alex as his closest friends called him, had built a fortune developing a groundbreaking app that had transformed the way people connected in the digital age. But despite his wealth and success, his life was hollow. Work consumed him, and while his app promised to bring people together, Alex had long been emotionally disconnected from the world. His thoughts were preoccupied with the upcoming launch of a new product, another venture that would ensure his legacy. He barely noticed the golden leaves floating down from the trees or the laughter of children playing nearby. Yet something, an inexplicable pull, broke his trance, a sound that was strangely out of place amidst the park's serenity. It was the sound of muffled sobs, a woman crying. Alex's steps slowed, and he instinctively scanned the area. His eyes settled on a woman sitting alone on a park bench. She was hunched over, her face buried in her hands, with a baby stroller parked next to her. From where he stood, he could see the faint tremble of her shoulders as she wept. The sight stirred something deep within him, a feeling long buried under years of board meetings, endless work hours, and financial success. Without really knowing why, Alex found himself walking towards her. He was a man who believed in solutions. If something was broken, you fixed it. And though he was the last person to offer emotional support, something about this woman, this moment, made him feel like he needed to try. "Excuse me," he said softly, stopping a few feet away from her. "Are you okay? Is there anything I can do to help?" The woman looked up at him, startled, wiping away her tears with the back of her hand. Her eyes, red from crying, met his, and for a moment, Alex felt an unfamiliar pang in his chest. She was younger than he had first assumed, probably in her late 20s, with dark hair pulled messily into a bun. There was something beautiful about her, even through the sadness that etched her face. "I'm fine," she mumbled, her voice cracking as she quickly looked away, trying to compose herself. "I don't mean to bother anyone. I'm just having a rough day." Alex's instincts told him to walk away. This wasn't his business. He didn't know this woman, and his world was filled with people who would have turned away without a second thought. But something kept him there, standing awkwardly by the bench. The baby in the stroller stirred, letting out a soft whimper. The woman's attention snapped to the child, and Alex saw her struggle as she fumbled with a small blanket and tried to soothe the baby. She looked utterly exhausted, her hands shaking slightly, as if the weight of her world was pressing down on her shoulders. "Is there anything I can do?" Alex asked again, this time more gently, taking the small step closer, "Even if it's just to listen." The woman hesitated, clearly torn between wanting to shut the world out and needing someone to hear her. Finally, she let out a long breath, her resolve crumbling. I don't know. Everything feels like it's falling apart." She looked up at him again, her eyes filled with a raw vulnerability that Alex rarely saw in the people he surrounded himself with. People in his world hid their emotions behind professionalism and facades. But here, in front of him, was someone genuinely in pain, and for reasons he couldn't quite grasp, it mattered to him. "I'm Alex," he introduced himself, extending a hand cautiously, though not entirely sure if it was the right gesture. "I don't want to intrude, but sometimes it helps to talk to someone who's not involved." The woman looked at his outstretched hand for a moment before shaking it. "Olivia," she replied softly. "And this is Sophia." She nodded toward the baby in the stroller, who was now gazing up at the sky with wide, curious eyes. "Nice to meet you, Olivia." "And Sophia," Alex said with a small smile. "Would it be all right if I sit?" Olivia blinked in surprise but nodded. "Sure." Alex sat down, maintaining a respectful distance. For a while, neither of them spoke. He wasn't sure what to say, and Olivia seemed lost in her thoughts, trying to keep herself together. The park was bustling around them, but for Alex, it felt like the world had narrowed to this one bench, this one woman and child who had unexpectedly become the center of his attention. After what felt like an eternity, Olivia finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I'd end up here, crying in a park with my daughter, unsure of what to do next." Alex didn't push her to explain. He just nodded, encouraging her to continue at her own pace. "I'm an artist," she said, staring down at her hands. "Or at least I was. I used to dream of opening my own gallery, of painting all day, and creating something that mattered." But her voice broke, and she let out a bitter laugh. "Life doesn't always go the way you plan." Alex listened quietly, giving her space to share her story. As Olivia spoke, her words came in fragments, about how she had fallen in love with someone who had promised to support her dreams, only to leave her when she became pregnant with Sophia. About how she had been struggling to make ends meet ever since, working multiple part-time jobs, selling what little art she could, and still barely managing to afford rent. "I'm alone," she said, tears welling up in her eyes again. "No family, no help. It's just me and Sophia. And sometimes I feel like I'm failing her." Alex's chest tightened. He couldn't begin to imagine the weight of the burden she carried. He had always believed that hard work and determination could overcome any obstacle, but listening to Olivia, he realized that life was far more complicated than that. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, feeling a bit helpless. "But you're not failing her. From what I can see, you're doing everything you can. And that's more than a lot of people would do." Olivia sniffled, managing a weak smile. "Thank you," she whispered. "It's just hard to believe that sometimes." The baby started fussing again, and Olivia reached into her bag, her expression turning to frustration. "I forgot to pack an extra bottle," she muttered under her breath. Without thinking, Alex stood up. "There's a cafe just around the corner. I can grab some milk for you. And maybe something to eat too. You look like you could use a break." Olivia looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. "You don't have to do that." "I know," Alex said with a reassuring smile. "But I'd want to." Consider it a small act of kindness from one stranger to another. She hesitated for a moment, her pride warring with her need. Then, with a grateful nod, she said, "Thank you. That's very kind of you." As Alex hurried toward the cafe, his mind raced. He wasn't sure why he felt so compelled to help this woman he had just met, but something about her vulnerability, her honesty, struck a chord deep within him. For years, he had built his life around numbers, success, and the relentless pursuit of more. But in this moment, all of that seemed insignificant compared to the simple act of offering help to someone in need. When he returned with the milk and a bag of food, Olivia's expression of gratitude was all the confirmation he needed that he had made the right choice. As they sat there together, talking quietly while she fed Sophia, Alex realized something profound. This chance encounter, this moment of genuine connection, was changing him in ways he had never expected. The seeds of friendship. As Olivia fed Sophia and nibbled on the sandwich Alex had brought, the tension between them eased into a comfortable silence. The park continued to hum with life, children running, couples walking hand in hand, and the crisp autumn air carrying the scent of fresh leaves and distant food carts. For a while, it seemed like the rest of the world had melted away, and only the three of them remained in the small bubble of calm. Alex found himself sitting back, observing this woman and her baby as if watching a scene from a life that wasn't his own. Olivia's movements were tender, careful, as she cradled Sophia with a mixture of exhaustion and love. It wasn't lost on him how much Olivia was giving of herself to care for this child, how much she had sacrificed. There was an underlying strength in her that Alex found compelling, a strength he wasn't sure he possessed himself. "I can't thank you enough," Olivia said after a while, glancing at him with a shy smile. "You didn't have to do all of this." Alex shook his head, dismissing her gratitude. It's nothing, really. Just glad I could help. He paused, then added, though I have to admit, I didn't expect my walk in the park to turn into this. Olivia let out a soft laugh, a hint of warmth breaking through her earlier sadness. I'm sure you had more important things to do today than rescue a crying stranger. Alex chuckled lightly. Important, maybe, but not nearly as meaningful. That confession took him by surprise even as he said it. He, Alexander Blackwood, the man who rarely found time for anything outside of his work, was admitting that this brief encounter, this simple act of kindness, was meaningful. It felt different, more real than the carefully calculated moves that defined his business life. He watched as Olivia wrapped the now sleeping Sophia back in her blanket, her gentle touch almost instinctive. She's beautiful, Alex said, nodding toward the baby. How old is she? 3 months, Olivia replied, her voice soft. She's the reason I keep going, even when things get tough. There was a silence that followed, one that held more weight than either of them could have realized. In that brief lull, Alex found himself wanting to know more about this woman. This artist with dreams that had been derailed by life. He didn't usually ask about people's personal lives, and yet there was a part of him that was genuinely curious. So, you said you're an artist? Alex asked, leaning back on the bench, crossing his arms loosely. What kind of work do you do? Olivia's face brightened a little, though it was tinged with sadness. Well, I was an artist before everything changed. I paint mostly, abstract pieces, but I used to do portraits too. I wanted to open my own gallery someday. That was the dream. The dream. Alex echoed, tilting his head slightly. Do you still paint? Olivia hesitated, her fingers brushing lightly against the edge of the stroller as if searching for the right words. Not as much as I used to, she admitted, her voice quieter now. It's hard to find the time, with Sophia and everything else. I take whatever commissions I can get, but it's not the same. Alex frowned, not at Olivia, but at the situation she found herself in. He knew what it was like to have dreams, big, lofty dreams, and how crushing it could be when life got in the way. But he had never experienced it like this, where survival took precedence over ambition. You must have been really talented to consider opening your own gallery, Alex said thoughtfully. It's not easy to break into the art world. Olivia let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. Talent's one thing, but connections and money, that's another story entirely. I had neither. And now, with Sophia, it feels like a distant memory, something from a life I don't live anymore. Alex was silent for a moment, processing her words. He realized he had lived a life of privilege in many ways, even though he prided himself on being self-made. Yes, he had built his empire from the ground up, but he had resources, networks, and most importantly, time. Olivia, on the other hand, had none of those things. She was fighting every day just to get by. Do you ever think about going back to it? Painting, I mean. Full time? Alex asked, surprising even himself with the question. He wasn't sure why he cared so much about whether or not Olivia returned to her art, but something in him wanted to see her pursue what she loved again. Olivia's expression softened, a wistful look in her eyes. I do think about it. Every day, actually. But the truth is, I don't know if it's possible anymore. Everything's so different now. Different how? Alex pressed gently. Olivia sighed, shifting on the bench as she looked out at the park. Being a single mom isn't easy. I love Sophia more than anything, but it's a lot. The money I make barely covers rent, and I have to pay for childcare just to work. Painting is a luxury I can't afford right now, even though it's what I want more than anything. Her words hit Alex harder than he expected. He had never been in a position where he had to sacrifice his dreams for survival. He had made sacrifices, sure, his love life, his free time, even his health on occasion, but they were sacrifices he had chosen to make for success. Olivia hadn't had that choice. "I'm sorry," Alex said quietly, his voice filled with sincerity. "It sounds overwhelming." "It is," Olivia admitted, a weary smile tugging at her lips. "But I keep telling myself it won't be forever, that one day things will get better. It's just hard to believe that sometimes." Alex nodded, understanding more than he thought he would. For years, he had lived in a bubble, surrounded by people who shared his lifestyle, his goals, and his ambition. He rarely interacted with anyone outside of that world, and now that it was humbling in a way he hadn't expected. Before he could say anything else, his phone buzzed in his pocket. Alex glanced at the screen, a reminder for his upcoming meeting, one he was already running late for. Normally, he would have jumped to his feet and made a beeline for the office, but today was different. He silenced the phone and slipped it back into his pocket. "I don't want to keep you," he said, looking at Olivia. "But if you ever need anything, I don't know, someone to talk to or help with Sophia, I'd be happy to lend a hand." Olivia looked at him with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "That's kind of you, but I don't want to be a burden." "You're not," Alex said firmly. "Sometimes we all need a little help." Olivia gave him a long look, as if trying to figure him out. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her tone curious but not suspicious. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Alex hesitated, unsure of how to answer. Why was he doing this? Why had he stopped in the first place? It wasn't like him to get involved in the lives of strangers, to offer his time and help so freely. But something about Olivia's story had struck a chord with him, something he couldn't quite explain. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Maybe because I've spent so much of my life disconnected from people. I built an app to help others find love, but I've never really experienced that kind of connection myself. Listening to you today, it made me realize how much more there is to life than work. And maybe, just maybe, I want to feel like I'm part of something real for once." Olivia's eyes softened, and for the first time since they had met, she smiled. A genuine, heartfelt smile. "Well, whatever your reasons, I appreciate it. I really do." They sat there for a while longer, talking about life, work, and the dreams they had once held. Alex found himself sharing more than he usually did with people, telling her about his long work hours, the loneliness that came with success, and the emptiness he often felt despite having everything he thought he wanted. And in return, Olivia opened up about her struggles, her fears, and the hope that still lingered beneath the surface. By the time the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park, they had formed an unlikely bond, one built not on shared history, but on shared humanity. As Olivia gathered her things, preparing to leave, Alex felt a strange reluctance to see her go. He didn't know why, but he wanted to make sure this wasn't the last time they spoke. "Listen," he said, standing up as Olivia adjusted the blanket around Sophia. "If you ever want to talk again, or just need a break, here's my number." He quickly scribbled it down on a piece of paper and handed it to her. "No pressure. Just, if you ever need someone." Olivia looked at the paper, then back at him, her eyes filled with a warmth he hadn't expected. "Thank you, Alex, for everything." She gave him a small wave as she walked away, pushing Sophia's stroller down the path and disappearing into the crowd. Alex stood there for a moment, watching her go, feeling a strange mix of emotions he couldn't quite name. As he finally turned to leave, a thought crossed his mind, one that lingered even as he made his way back to his high-rise office and the world of meetings, deadlines, and contracts. Perhaps this encounter had been more than just a fleeting moment. Perhaps it was the beginning of something far more meaningful than he had ever expected. A proposition of change. The following week was a blur for Alex. He threw himself back into work, his typical routine of back-to-back meetings, investor calls, and late-night strategy sessions. But despite the demanding schedule that usually consumed his every thought, something had shifted within him. His mind kept drifting back to that park, to Olivia and her daughter, Sophia. He couldn't explain it, but meeting Olivia had unsettled him in a way that was both strange and somehow liberating. The corporate world he lived in, the relentless pursuit of the next big deal or technological innovation, had felt secure, stable, but now it felt hollow. The woman sitting on that bench, cradling her child, had shown him a different kind of strength, one he hadn't realized existed. Her life, full of challenges he'd never had to face, resonated with him in ways he couldn't shake. One evening, after another long day at the office, Alex sat alone in his penthouse apartment overlooking the city. The sprawling view, glittering lights, the hum of traffic far below, was supposed to be a testament to his success. Yet, as he stood there with a glass of scotch in hand, he couldn't help but feel how small and insignificant it all seemed. What did all of this really mean if it couldn't fill the emptiness inside him? The conversation with Olivia replayed in his mind. He remembered the way she spoke about her art with such passion, even though life had forced her to set it aside. And the way she looked at Sophia, with both love and a deep, almost painful exhaustion. The contrast between her vulnerability and her determination stirred something in Alex, and before he could stop himself, he found his phone in his hand. He stared at her number for a long time. Should he call? Would it be intrusive? He didn't want to seem like some rich guy swooping in to fix her problems. That wasn't his intention. He genuinely wanted to help. But even more than that, he wanted to reconnect. That afternoon in the park had sparked a connection he hadn't expected, and he couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward her. Without giving himself time to second-guess, he hit the call button. The phone rang twice before Olivia picked up. "Hello." Her voice was soft, but there was a hint of surprise in it, as if she hadn't expected him to actually call. "Hey, Olivia. It's Alex," he said, trying to keep his tone casual even though his heart was racing. "I hope I'm not calling at a bad time." No, it's fine," Olivia replied, and Alex could hear the faint sounds of Sophia in the background. "I'm just putting Sophia down for the night. What's up?" Alex paused for a moment, suddenly unsure of how to proceed. He didn't want to come across as intrusive or presumptive, but there was something he had been thinking about since their conversation in the park. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other day," he began carefully. "About your art, and how you haven't had the chance to really pursue it since Sophia came along." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, and Alex worried he had overstepped. But then Olivia sighed, her voice softer now. "Yeah, it's been tough. I want to get back to it, but, well, you know how it is." "I do," Alex said, nodding even though she couldn't see him. "I don't know if it's my place to say this, but I think you should. Go back to it. I mean, your passion for your art. It's obvious, and I know it's not easy with everything you've got going on, but maybe there's a way to make it work." Olivia let out a small laugh, though it was tinged with sadness. "I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I don't exactly have the luxury of pursuing dreams right now. Between Sophia and the bills, there's just no time. And even if there were, I don't have the connections or the resources to make it happen." Alex's mind whirred as an idea began to form, one that had been simmering since their conversation in the park. He knew it might sound crazy, but the more he thought about it, the more sense it made. After all, wasn't he in a position to help someone like Olivia? "What if you did have the resources?" he asked, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts in his head. Olivia's laughter this time was full of disbelief. "And how would that happen?" Alex took a deep breath. This was it, the moment where he either made a fool of himself or did something that could actually change Olivia's life. "I know this might sound like I'm overstepping, but I've been thinking. My company is moving into a new office space soon. We're redesigning everything from scratch, and I've been looking for an artist to commission some original pieces for the space. I know it's not the same as running your own gallery, but what if you took the job?" There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. and for a moment, Alex wondered if the line had gone dead. But then Olivia's voice came back, small and uncertain. "Wait, you're offering me a job?" "I am," Alex confirmed. "And I know we haven't even talked about your work or seen your portfolio, but I have a feeling you're exactly what we're looking for. You could work on your own schedule, and it would give you a chance to focus on your art again. Maybe this could be the start of something bigger for you." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. Alex could hear the disbelief in her voice when she finally spoke. "Alex, I don't know what to say. This sounds too good to be true. You don't even know if I'm any good." Alex smiled. "I trust my instincts, and from the way you talk about your art, I'm confident that you're incredibly talented. All I'm asking is for you to consider it. No strings attached." For a moment, there was only silence, the weight of the proposition hanging between them. Alex knew how it sounded. It wasn't just an offer of a job. It was an opportunity, a lifeline. But he didn't want Olivia to feel like he was offering her charity. He genuinely believed in her potential, and he wanted to see her thrive. "Why are you doing this?" Olivia finally asked, her voice laced with suspicion. "I mean, I'm grateful, but why?" Alex leaned against the kitchen counter, staring out at the city skyline. He thought about his life, about the long hours, the endless pursuit of more, and the emptiness that had come with it. He thought about how meeting Olivia had shaken something loose in him, something he hadn't even realized was missing. "Because I've spent a lot of time building things," he said slowly. "Companies, apps, financial success. But I've never really built anything that truly matters to someone on a personal level. Maybe this is a way for me to do that. And maybe, just maybe, I want to be part of something real for once." Another silence followed, but this time it felt less like hesitation, and more like Olivia was processing what he had said. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but steady. "Okay, I'll do it." A rush of relief and excitement coursed through Alex. "You will?" "Yes," Olivia said with a hint of laughter in her voice. "But you're crazy, you know that." Alex grinned, feeling lighter than he had in a long time. "I've been told that before." They talked for a little while longer, discussing the logistics of the project and how they would make it work around Olivia's schedule with Sofia. As they wrapped up the conversation, Alex felt a sense of anticipation building inside him. This wasn't just about helping Olivia. It was about changing something in his own life, too. He had spent so long chasing the next big deal, the next business opportunity, that he had forgotten what it meant to connect with people in a meaningful way. That night, as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Alex felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. This was the beginning of something different, something real. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about work or money or success. He was thinking about a woman and her baby, about art, about what it meant to give someone the chance to follow their dreams. And in doing so, maybe he would find something he had been missing all along. The next few weeks flew by in a whirlwind of activity. Olivia had sent Alex some samples of her artwork, and as soon as he saw them, he knew he had made the right decision. Her work was bold, raw, and full of emotion, exactly the kind of pieces that would transform his sterile corporate office into something more dynamic and human. They worked out a flexible schedule that allowed Olivia to take care of Sofia, while still dedicating time to her art. Alex made sure she had everything she needed: paints, canvases, and even a small studio space in the corner of the office building where she could work in peace. As the pieces began to take shape, something else started to grow between them. Their conversations, once purely professional, became more personal. They talked about their lives, their fears, and their hopes for the future. Olivia opened up more about her past, about the man who had left her, and how she had struggled to rebuild her life from the ground up. And Alex, in turn, shared more about his own insecurities, how success had come at the cost of his personal life, and how he often felt disconnected from the people around him. It wasn't long before their friendship deepened into something more. Alex found himself looking forward to the moments they spent together, whether it was over coffee at the office or watching Sophia sleep peacefully in her stroller while Olivia painted. There was a quiet intimacy between them, one that neither of them acknowledged but both of them felt. As the final painting was completed, Alex stood in the makeshift studio, watching Olivia clean her brushes. The room was filled with the scent of paint and the soft sound of Sophia cooing in the background. "You did it," Alex said quietly, breaking the silence. "The pieces are incredible, Olivia. Truly." Olivia smiled, her cheeks flushed with pride. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you." Alex took a step closer, his heart racing. "You didn't need me to do this. You've had the talent all along. I just gave you the space to show it." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the air between them crackled with unspoken emotion. Alex could feel the pull between them, stronger now than ever before. He knew that what they had built, both professionally and personally, was real, and he wasn't ready to let it slip away. "Olivia," he began, his voice low and steady, "there's something I've been meaning to say." But before he could finish, Sophia let out a soft cry, breaking the moment. Olivia turned, her attention immediately shifting to her daughter. She picked Sophia up, rocking her gently, her expression a mix of love and exhaustion. Alex watched her, his heart swelling with emotion. He had never expected to feel this way, to be so drawn to this woman and her child. But now that he did, he couldn't ignore it. As Olivia looked back at him, her eyes soft and full of gratitude, Alex made a decision. He wasn't going to let fear hold him back anymore. He wasn't going to keep hiding behind his work or his wealth. It was time to take a leap of faith, both in his career and in his heart. The awakening of the heart. In the weeks that followed, Alex found himself navigating uncharted emotional territory. His relationship with Olivia had taken on a life of its own, slowly evolving from a professional partnership into something far deeper. Every day he spent with her, he discovered new layers to her personality. Her resilience, her kindness, her humor. And each one drew him closer. But with that closeness came a deepening fear, one that gnawed at him in the quiet hours of the night. He had built his entire life around certainty, financial certainty, professional certainty, and above all, control. Love, on the other hand, was unpredictable. It was messy, complicated, and far beyond anything Alex had ever experienced. His past relationships, few and far between, had always been transactional in a way. They were based on mutual ambition or convenience, but never on the kind of raw, emotional connection he felt now. He hadn't planned on falling in love with Olivia, but as he watched her juggle motherhood and rediscover her passion for art, he knew he had crossed that invisible line. He wasn't just drawn to her, he cared about her deeply. And even more surprising was his affection for Sophia, the tiny baby who had once been a stranger and now felt like an integral part of his life. But with these growing feelings came hesitation. Alex wasn't sure what kind of future he could offer Olivia and Sophia. His world was fast-paced, driven by corporate deadlines and high-stakes decisions, while Olivia's life revolved around art and raising her child. Could he, a man whose life had been defined by success, truly be the partner she needed? He found himself standing at the edge of a precipice, torn between the safety of his carefully constructed life and the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of something more. Olivia, too, felt the shift between them. She noticed the way Alex's eyes lingered on her a little longer than they used to, the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, the small gestures that made her feel seen and valued in ways she hadn't experienced before. In the beginning, she had viewed Alex as nothing more than a well-meaning stranger, a man whose world was light years away from her own. But the more time they spent together, the more she realized how wrong that assumption had been. There was a depth to Alex that she hadn't expected, a vulnerability beneath his polished exterior that mirrored her own. She saw it in the way he talked about his work, how he questioned the choices he had made to get to where he was, and she saw it most clearly in the way he interacted with Sophia, his awkwardness giving way to a tenderness that surprised both of them. At first, Olivia had been hesitant to let Alex get too close. She had been hurt before, abandoned by the man who was supposed to stand by her through the most challenging moment of her life, Sophia's birth. She had learned the hard way that people weren't always who they seemed to be, that even the most sincere promises could crumble under the weight of reality. But Alex was different. He wasn't making promises he couldn't keep, and he wasn't trying to save her or fix her life. Instead, he was simply there, offering his support in quiet, meaningful ways. He respected her independence, gave her space when she needed it, and never once made her feel like she owed him anything for his help. And that scared her, because with every passing day, Olivia felt herself falling for him. It was a slow, steady fall, one that she hadn't seen coming but couldn't stop. Late one evening, after putting Sophia to bed, Olivia sat at her kitchen table, staring at the stack of bills that had been piling up. Despite the income from the commission Alex had given her, it wasn't enough to cover everything. Rent, childcare, groceries, it all added up, and there was still the lingering fear that once the commission was over, she would be right back where she started. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a text from Alex. "Hey, just checking in. How are you and Sophia doing?" Olivia smiled softly. He had been texting her more often lately, sometimes just to say hello, other times to share a funny story or a picture of something that reminded him of her. She had come to look forward to these messages, the small moments of connection that brightened her otherwise hectic days. "We're good," she typed back. "Sophia's finally asleep. How about you?" There was a pause before his reply came through. "Can I call you?" A flutter of nerves danced in her chest. She hesitated for a moment, then texted back, "Sure." A few seconds later, her phone rang. "Hey," Alex's voice came through, warm and familiar. "Sorry to call so late." "It's fine," Olivia said, leaning back in her chair, the tension in her shoulders easing just from the sound of his voice. "I was just going through some bills." "Ah, the joys of adulthood," Alex replied with a chuckle. "I won't keep you long. I've been thinking." "About what?" Olivia asked, curious. There was a brief silence on the other end, and for a moment, she wondered if Alex had changed his mind about whatever he was going to say. But then he spoke, his voice more serious now. "About you, and Sophia, and us." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. "Us?" "Yeah," Alex said quietly. "I've been trying to figure out how to say this without making it awkward, but the truth is, I care about you. A lot. And I care about Sophia, too, more than I ever thought I would." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected this. Not tonight. Not like this. Her mind raced, trying to process his words. She had known there was something between them, but hearing it out loud made it feel more real, more daunting. "I don't know what that means for us," Alex continued, his voice filled with uncertainty. "I'm not exactly great at relationships, and I know you have a lot on your plate. But I also know that I don't want to lose whatever this is between us." Olivia's heart was pounding now, a mixture of fear and excitement swirling inside her. She had spent so long guarding herself, protecting herself from the possibility of being hurt again. But with Alex, it was different. He wasn't pressuring her, wasn't making demands. He was simply offering her the truth, raw and unpolished. "I care about you too, Alex," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I didn't expect to, but I do." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and Olivia could almost hear the smile in Alex's voice when he spoke again. "That's a relief. I was half expecting you to hang up on me." Olivia laughed, the tension in her chest easing. "No, I wouldn't do that." For a few moments, they sat in comfortable silence, the weight of their confessions settling between them. It felt like a turning point, a moment of vulnerability that could either bring them closer or complicate everything. But for the first time in a long time, Olivia felt hopeful. "So, what do we do now?" she asked, her voice hesitant but hopeful. Well, Alex said thoughtfully, I don't want to rush anything. I know you have Sophia to think about, and I don't want to mess things up for either of you. But maybe we can just take it one step at a time. See where this goes. Olivia smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. I'd like that. They talked for a while longer, their conversation drifting to lighter topics. Sophia's latest milestones, Alex's upcoming projects at work, and their shared love of art. By the time they hung up, Olivia felt lighter, as if a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying had been lifted. But as she lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't shake the lingering questions. Could she really open herself up to Alex? Could she trust him with her heart, and more importantly, with Sophia's? She wanted to believe she could, but after everything she had been through, trusting someone again, especially someone as different from her as Alex, was terrifying. As the days passed, Alex and Olivia fell into a new rhythm, one that felt both familiar and uncertain. They spent more time together, meeting for coffee or lunch whenever their schedules allowed. Sometimes Alex would come over to Olivia's apartment after work, bringing takeout and spending time with both her and Sophia. He had quickly become a natural with the baby, and watching him hold Sophia or play with her brought a warmth to Olivia's heart that she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about romantic attraction anymore. It was about something deeper, a sense of belonging, of finding a place in each other's lives that neither of them had expected. One evening, after Sophia had gone to bed, Alex and Olivia sat together on her small couch, the quiet hum of the city outside her window. They had been talking about nothing in particular, work, art, life in general, when Alex suddenly reached out and took her hand. I've been thinking about something, he said, his voice serious but soft. Olivia looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. What is it? I know this is all new for both of us, Alex began, his thumb brushing lightly over her knuckles. But I want you to know that I'm in this. For real. I'm not going anywhere. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She had been waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Alex to pull away or decide that this, whatever they were, was too complicated. But instead, he was doing the opposite. He was leaning in. I want to be a part of your life, Olivia. Alex continued, his gaze steady and sincere. I want to be a part of Sophia's life too, if you'll let me. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'm ready to figure it out with you. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes, the weight of his words sinking in. She had spent so long feeling like she was carrying the world on her shoulders, like she had to do everything on her own. But now, here was Alex, offering her something she hadn't even realized she needed. Partnership. I don't know what to say, Olivia whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. You don't have to say anything, Alex said softly, squeezing her hand. Just know that I'm here. And in that moment, as they sat together in the quiet of her apartment, Olivia felt something shift inside her. The walls she had built around her heart began to crumble, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to do this alone. A love grows, and so do the challenges. The weeks turned into months, and Alex and Olivia's relationship continued to deepen. Their lives, once separate and operating in vastly different worlds, began to intertwine in ways neither of them had anticipated. What had started as a simple connection in a park had blossomed into something real, something that Alex, despite his usual desire for control and predictability, was ready to embrace. Olivia, too, found herself letting go of the fears that had held her back for so long. She had always believed that being a single mother meant doing everything alone, that relying on someone else was a luxury she couldn't afford. But with Alex, things were different. He wasn't just offering her support. He was offering her a true partnership. And as much as that scared her, it also made her feel more secure than she had in years. Their relationship was far from conventional, but it worked. Alex, ever the workaholic, found himself carving out more time for Olivia and Sophia. He no longer felt the same compulsive drive to be at the office from dawn until midnight, micromanaging every aspect of his company. Instead, he felt a new kind of drive, the desire to be present, to build something real with Olivia and Sophia by his side. But as their bond strengthened, so did the challenges that came with blending their very different lives. One Saturday morning, Olivia woke up to the soft sound of Sophia giggling in the living room. For a moment, she lay in bed, listening to the joyful sound of her daughter's laughter mixing with Alex's deep, playful voice. She smiled to herself, marveling at how much had changed since the day she had met Alex in the park. A few months ago, she would have been starting her weekend alone, juggling her freelance work and caring for Sophia without much help or support. Now she had someone by her side, a partner who was quickly becoming a part of their little family. As she padded down the hallway, still in her pajamas, Olivia found Alex sitting on the floor with Sophia, a toy castle spread out between them. Sophia was clapping her hands excitedly as Alex helped her fit the tiny plastic princess into the castle turret. "Morning," Olivia said with a sleepy smile as she leaned against the doorway. Alex looked up, grinning. "Hey, we're just building a kingdom here." Sophia looked up at her mother, her face lighting up as she reached out her chubby little arms. "Mama." Olivia's heart swelled as she walked over and scooped Sophia up into her arms. "Looks like you two have been busy." "We have," Alex said, standing up and stretching. "Sophia's got a real talent for castle architecture." Olivia laughed, settling onto the couch with Sophia in her lap. "Well, she's got a good teacher." Alex sat down next to them, his eyes softening as he looked at the two of them. "Actually, I was thinking about something." "What's that?" Olivia asked, glancing over at him. Alex hesitated for a moment, then leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I know things have been going really well between us, and I've been thinking a lot about what the future looks like." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. The future. It was a word she hadn't allowed herself to think about too much when it came to relationships, not since Sophia had been born. Her past had taught her that plans could change in an instant, that the people you thought you could count on might not always be there. But with Alex, things felt different. For the first time in a long time, the idea of a future with someone didn't feel so scary. "What about the future?" she asked, her voice soft. Alex shifted slightly, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking that maybe we should look for a bigger place, together." Olivia blinked in surprise, her heart racing. "You mean, move in together?" "Yeah," Alex said, his eyes searching hers for a reaction. "I know it's a big step, but I've been thinking about it a lot. I want to be here for you and Sophia more. And it's been tough with me going back and forth between your place and mine. I think we could build something real, together." Olivia was quiet for a moment, her mind racing as she processed what Alex was saying. Moving in together, it was a huge step, one that would solidify their relationship in a way that felt both exciting and terrifying. She glanced down at Sophia, who was now happily playing with a toy in her lap, and felt a wave of conflicting emotions. On the one hand, the idea of living with Alex, of building a home together, filled her with a sense of warmth and security. She could see it in her mind's eye, a life where they woke up together every morning, where Alex became a permanent fixture in Sophia's life. But on the other hand, the fear of losing that stability if things didn't work out gnawed at her. "What are you thinking?" Alex asked gently, his voice pulling her out of her thoughts. Olivia looked up at him, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just a lot to think about." Alex nodded, his expression understanding. "I know. I don't want to rush you. I want you to know that I'm all in, Olivia. Whatever that looks like for you, I'm here for the long haul." Olivia felt a lump rise in her throat at his words. He was offering her everything she had ever wanted: stability, love, a partner who was truly committed to her and Sophia. But with that offer came the risk of heartbreak, of things not working out the way they hoped. "I just need a little time to think about it," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "Of course," Alex said, reaching over to take her hand. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Olivia smiled, squeezing his hand. "Thank you." They spent the rest of the day together, enjoying the simplicity of being a family. But even as they laughed and played with Sophia, the question of moving in together lingered in Olivia's mind. It was a decision that would change everything, one she couldn't afford to make lightly. A few days later, Olivia found herself sitting in a small cafe, sipping a cup of coffee as she stared out the window. She had agreed to meet her best friend, Laura, to talk things over. Laura had been by her side through every up and down since Sophia was born, and Olivia trusted her judgment more than anyone. "So," Laura said, leaning back in her chair after hearing the whole story, "he wants to move in with you." Olivia nodded, wrapping her hands around her mug. "Yeah, he says he's ready for it, but I don't know if I am." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "I mean, from everything you've told me, Alex sounds like a great guy. He's been there for you and Sophia in ways most people wouldn't even think of. What's holding you back?" Olivia sighed, her shoulders slumping. "It's just, I'm scared, Laura. I've been hurt before. What if it doesn't work out? What if he realizes that this, me, Sophia, everything, is too much for him?" Laura nodded, her expression sympathetic. "I get it. You've been through a lot, and it's natural to be cautious. But from what you've told me, Alex isn't that guy. He's shown you time and again that he's committed. And let's be real, life is messy. Relationships are messy. But you can't let fear hold you back from something good." Olivia stared down at her coffee, Laura's words sinking in. She knew her friend was right. Alex wasn't like the man who had walked out on her before. He had proven himself time and again, not just with words but with actions. He was there for her, for Sophia, in ways she hadn't expected. But still, the fear lingered. The fear of being vulnerable, of opening herself up to someone only to have them leave. "What if I'm not ready for this?" Olivia asked quietly. Laura leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Olivia, you'll never know if you're ready until you take the leap. You've been doing everything on your own for so long, and I get that. But maybe it's time to let someone else in. You deserve happiness. Sophia deserves happiness. And if Alex is willing to give that to you, why not take the chance?" Olivia nodded slowly, her mind swirling with thoughts. Maybe Laura was right. Maybe it was time to stop holding herself back out of fear. Alex had proven himself over and over again, and she knew, deep down, that he wasn't going to abandon her the way others had. "I'll think about it," Olivia said, her voice more certain now. Laura smiled, giving her a supportive nod. "Good. And whatever you decide, I'm here for you." Later that night, as Olivia sat on the couch after putting Sophia to bed, she found herself replaying the conversation with Laura. She thought about the way Alex had been there for her, the way he had made her feel safe and valued, not just as a mother, but as a woman. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and she picked it up, smiling when she saw Alex's name on the screen. "Hey, how was your day?" the text read. Olivia hesitated for a moment, then typed back, "It was good. Actually, I've been thinking about what you said." Alex's reply was almost immediate. "Yeah." "Yeah," Olivia wrote, her heart racing as she typed. "I think I'm ready. To move in together, I mean." The pause between messages felt like an eternity, but when Alex's reply finally came through, it made her heart swell. "You have no idea how happy that makes me. Let's do this, Olivia. Together." Olivia smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't just about moving in together. It was about taking the next step, about building a life with someone who truly cared for her and Sophia. And for the first time in a long time, Olivia felt like she wasn't alone. She texted back together. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity as Alex and Olivia began making plans for their future. They started looking at new apartments, ones that would give them more space and room to grow as a family. It was an exciting, yet daunting, process, especially for Olivia, who had never imagined herself in this position again. But with Alex by her side, everything felt more manageable. He was patient, thoughtful, and always made sure to include her in every decision, making it clear that this was their home, their life, and their future together. As they stood in the empty living room of the apartment they had chosen, the key to their new place in Alex's hand, Olivia felt a rush of emotions, excitement, nervousness, and most of all, hope. "We did it," Alex said with a grin, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Welcome home." Olivia looked up at him, her heart full as she rested her head on his shoulder. "Yeah," she whispered, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. "Welcome home." But as the boxes were unpacked and life began to settle into its new rhythm, Olivia and Alex soon discovered that building a life together wasn't without its challenges. They had both come into this relationship with their own baggage. Alex with his relentless work ethic and Olivia with her fear of being abandoned again. And now, as they tried to navigate the complexities of living together, those old habits and insecurities began to surface. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Alex came home late, tired and distracted. Olivia had spent the day juggling Sophia's needs and finishing up a freelance art project, and by the time Alex walked through the door, she was on edge. "Hey," he said as he stepped into the living room, setting his briefcase down. "Sorry I'm late." "It's fine," Olivia said, though the edge in her voice made it clear that it wasn't. Alex frowned, sensing the tension. "Are you okay?" Olivia sighed, rubbing her temples. "I'm just tired, Alex. I've been with Sophia all day, trying to get this project done. And now it's late, and I feel like I'm doing everything on my own." Alex's frustration flared, though he tried to keep it in check. "I'm working, Olivia. I'm doing everything I can to provide for us." "I know that," Olivia snapped, her voice rising. "But you're not here. I mean really here. I need more than just financial support, Alex. I need a partner." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken fears and frustrations. Alex ran a hand through his hair, his chest tightening. He hadn't expected this. He thought that moving in together would solve everything, that it would make them feel more connected, not less. "I'm trying," Alex said quietly, his voice filled with tension. "I'm doing the best I can." "I know," Olivia whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "But it doesn't feel like enough sometimes." Alex stepped closer, his heart aching at the sight of her tears. "Olivia, I love you. I love Sophia. I want to make this work, but I can't do it alone, either. We have to figure this out together." Olivia wiped her eyes, her voice trembling. "I'm scared, Alex. I'm scared that this is too much, that I'm too much." Alex reached out and pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as she cried softly against his chest. "You're not too much," he whispered into her hair. "We're in this together. We'll figure it out." And in that moment, despite the tension and the uncertainty, Olivia felt a sense of relief. Alex wasn't running away. He wasn't pulling back. He was standing there, holding her, promising that they would get through this together. It wouldn't be easy, she knew that. There would be more challenges, more arguments, more moments where they felt like they were in over their heads. But as long as they faced those challenges together, Olivia knew they would be okay. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Olivia allowed herself to hope again, to believe that maybe, just maybe, this time, love wouldn't let her down. Building a future together. Months passed, and Alex and Olivia settled into the rhythms of their new life together. There were still challenges, of course, times when the weight of their past experiences, their insecurities, and the demands of their respective lives threatened to pull them apart. But through it all, they kept coming back to the promises they had made to each other, to face every obstacle together, to communicate openly, and to build a future rooted in love and respect. Living together wasn't always easy. Alex's demanding career still required long hours, and while he made a conscious effort to be present for Olivia and Sophia, there were moments when work pulled into their time together. Olivia, on the other hand, was still adjusting to the idea of sharing her space and her life with someone after so many years of doing everything on her own. It was an unfamiliar vulnerability, one that she found both comforting and terrifying. But despite the occasional bumps in the road, the bond between them continued to deepen. Sophia, now nearly a year old, was thriving in their new home. She had developed a special bond with Alex, who had gone from a nervous bystander to a devoted father figure in her life. Olivia marveled at how naturally he had stepped into the role, and each time she saw him playing with Sophia, her heart swelled with gratitude and love. One evening, after a long day at work, Alex came home to find Olivia sitting in the living room, a canvas set up in front of her. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, and Sophia was asleep in her crib, giving Olivia a rare moment of quiet to focus on her art. Alex paused in the doorway, watching her with a sense of awe. She was completely absorbed in her work, her brow furrowed in concentration as she moved the brush across the canvas. There was something magical about seeing her in this state, lost in the world of creation, the stress of the day melting away as she poured herself into her painting. For a moment, Alex simply stood there, marveling at how far they had come. When he had first met Olivia in the park, she had been overwhelmed and struggling, her dreams buried under the weight of motherhood and survival. But now, here she was, thriving, reclaiming her passion for art, while building a life with him and Sophia. "You're amazing, you know that," Alex said softly, stepping into the room. Olivia looked up, startled, but her face broke into a smile when she saw him. "Hey, I didn't hear you come in." Alex walked over and kissed her on the forehead before sitting down next to her. "You were in the zone." Olivia laughed lightly, setting her brush down. "Yeah, it's been a while since I've had time to really paint. I forgot how much I missed it." Alex smiled, reaching out to take her hand. "I'm glad you're doing it again. Your work is incredible." Olivia squeezed his hand, her eyes softening. "Thank you. I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without you, Alex. You've given me so much, space to create, support for Sophia. I don't know how I can ever repay you." Alex frowned, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You don't have to repay me, Olivia. This isn't about owing each other anything. We're a team. We help each other because we care, not because there's some kind of debt." Olivia's heart swelled at his words. She had spent so much of her life feeling like she had to carry everything on her own, that relying on someone else would eventually lead to disappointment. But Alex had shown her that it didn't have to be that way. He wasn't going anywhere, and he wasn't asking for anything in return. He was simply there, by her side, through the good and the bad. "I don't know what I'd do without you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You'll never have to find out," Alex said, his voice steady and full of conviction. "I'm not going anywhere." They sat together in the quiet of the evening, the weight of their shared journey settling over them like a warm blanket. There was something so simple and beautiful about moments like this, moments when the world outside faded away, and all that mattered was the connection they had built together. As the weeks went on, Olivia found herself falling even more deeply in love with Alex. It wasn't just about the grand gestures or the romantic moments. It was the little things that he did every day. The way he would come home from work and immediately check in on her and Sophia. The way he supported her art without ever making her feel pressured. The way he listened when she talked about her dreams and her fears. But there was one dream that Olivia hadn't fully shared with Alex yet, a dream that had been quietly forming in the back of her mind ever since they moved in together. She had always wanted to open her own gallery, a place where she could not only display her own work, but also provide a platform for other struggling artists, especially those who were parents like her. It was a dream that had felt impossible for so long, but now, with Alex's support and the stability they had built, It didn't seem so far out of reach. One evening after Sophia had gone to bed, Olivia decided to bring it up. "Alex, can I talk to you about something?" she asked as they sat together on the couch, sipping tea and unwinding from the day. "Of course," Alex said, setting down his cup and turning to face her. "What's on your mind?" Olivia took a deep breath, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nerves. "I've been thinking about my art and what I want to do with it long term. I've always dreamed of opening my own gallery, a place where I could showcase my work and support other artists who are struggling to balance their careers with being parents." Alex's eyes lit up, a slow smile spreading across his face. "That sounds amazing, Olivia. I had no idea you were thinking about doing something like that." "I've always wanted to," Olivia admitted, her voice soft. "But it just seemed so impossible before. Now, though, I don't know, I feel like maybe it could actually happen." Alex reached out and took her hand, his expression filled with pride. "Of course it can happen. You're incredibly talented, and your work deserves to be seen. If this is what you want to do, I'm behind you 100%. Olivia's heart swelled with emotion, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you, Alex. I don't think I could have done any of this without you." "You don't have to thank me," Alex said with a soft smile. "This is your dream, Olivia. I'm just lucky enough to be here to support you." They spent the rest of the evening talking about the possibilities, how Olivia could turn her vision into reality, the steps she would need to take to open her gallery, and how they could balance it all with raising Sophia. For the first time in years, Olivia felt a sense of excitement and possibility that she had long thought was out of reach. The next few months were a whirlwind of planning and preparation. Olivia threw herself into the process of finding a space for her gallery, securing funding, and connecting with other artists who shared her vision. Alex was by her side every step of the way, offering both practical and emotional support as they navigated the complexities of building a business together. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, times when Olivia felt overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what she was trying to accomplish. But each time she faltered, Alex was there to lift her up, reminding her of her talent, her passion, and her ability to make her dream a reality. And as Olivia's gallery began to take shape, so too did their family. Sophia continued to grow, her bright, joyful spirit filling their home with laughter and love. Alex had fully embraced his role as a father figure, and Olivia couldn't help but marvel at how naturally he had fit into their lives. But even as everything seemed to be falling into place, there was still one question that lingered in Olivia's mind. One question she hadn't yet asked Alex, but that had become increasingly important to her as their relationship deepened. It was a quiet Saturday morning when Olivia finally decided to bring it up. They were sitting together at the kitchen table, sipping coffee as Sophia played nearby. "Alex, can I ask you something?" Olivia said, her voice hesitant. "Of course," Alex said, setting down his mug and giving her his full attention. Olivia took a deep breath, her heart racing. "Do you ever think about the future? I mean, beyond where we are now?" Alex frowned slightly, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you ever think about us getting married?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of possibility. Alex stared at her for a moment, his expression unreadable, and Olivia's heart sank. She hadn't meant to put pressure on him, but the thought of them spending the rest of their lives together had been on her mind more and more lately. She wanted to know where he stood, even if the answer wasn't what she hoped for. But before she could say anything more, Alex reached across the table and took her hand, his eyes softening as he gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Olivia," he said quietly, his voice full of warmth. "I've been thinking about that since the day I met you." Olivia's heart skipped a beat, her eyes widening in surprise. "You have?" Alex nodded, his thumb brushing gently over her knuckles. "I didn't know it right away, but the more time we spent together, the more I realized that I don't want to spend my life with anyone else. You and Sophia, you're everything to me." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes, her heart overflowing with emotion. She had spent so long guarding herself, so long keeping her walls up, but now, here was Alex, offering her everything she had ever wanted: love, commitment, and a future. "I love you," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion, as he stood and walked around the table to kneel in front of her. "And I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Olivia let out a soft sob, nodding through her tears. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes, of course." Alex stood, pulling her into his arms as they held each other, their hearts full and overflowing with joy. Sophia, sensing the emotion in the room, toddled over to them and giggled as she reached up, her small hands patting Alex's leg. They both laughed, looking down at their daughter with tears in their eyes, and Alex scooped her up into his arms, holding both Olivia and Sophia close. It was a moment of pure, unfiltered joy, the kind of moment Olivia had once thought was out of reach for her. But now, standing there with the two people she loved most in the world, she knew that this was just the beginning of their journey together. In the months that followed, Alex and Olivia planned their wedding, balancing the excitement of their upcoming marriage with the launch of Olivia's gallery. It was a hectic time, filled with both triumphs and challenges, but through it all, they never lost sight of what mattered most: their love for each other and their commitment to building a life together. Olivia's gallery opened to great success, drawing attention from the art community and providing a platform for artists who, like her, had once struggled to find their footing. The space became not only a showcase for creativity, but also a place where artists and parents could find support and encouragement in their dual roles. And as for their wedding, it was everything they had dreamed of: a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by family and friends, with Sophia standing proudly as the flower girl. As they exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other through all of life's ups and downs, both Alex and Olivia knew that they had found something truly special, a love that was built not just on passion but on partnership, trust, and a shared vision for the future. As they danced together under the stars that night, with Sophia nestled in Olivia's arms, Alex whispered softly in her ear, "I told you we'd figure it out." Olivia smiled, resting her head against his chest. "You were right." And in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of their love and the promise of a future filled with joy and an adventure, Olivia knew that they had everything they needed to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together.